All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Milton Mental Wellness webinar hosted by the City of Milton and the LRJ Foundation. I'm Maddie Post and I'm the Community Outreach Manager here at the City of Milton. I wanted to mention a few things before we got started, just some housekeeping things, but all attendees are muted and videos are turned off by default. We will have some time at the end of the presentation for some question and answers. And if you would like, there's a chat box at the bottom of your screen that you can submit any questions to the moderator. So I think that pretty much addresses all of our housekeeping things. If you could just stay off mute, just to minimize all the distractions, that would be great. But I would like to go ahead and introduce Mayor Peyton Jamison. Mayor, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And as Maddie said, I'm the mayor of Milton, and it is my honor to welcome you to tonight's Milton Mental Wellness webinar. And this is an opportunity for people to learn from experts, understand different tools and perspectives, and be a part of a community that understands the real pervasive issues when it comes to mental health. The reality is that many people from all different places, all different backgrounds, and in all different situations struggle daily. It might be with depression or stress and anxiety or any number of issues. And we in Milton are committed to doing what we can to raise public awareness, combat stigmas, and to let people know that help is out there. And the LRJ Foundation, which has worked with us for over the last few years to share tips, resources, and other information that we hope can make a difference. They've also provided inspiration and expertise to multiple webinars like the one we'll have tonight. I have the pleasure of both expressing gratitude for and introducing the LRJ Foundation's co-founder and executive director, Teressa Ruspi. Thank you, Teressa, for all that you do.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jameson. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, along with colleagues and teammates and all of you that are watching. Everyone, welcome to the Milton Wellness webinar, and those that are not even in the City of Milton, those that may be extended and watching from within. The beauty of this community is that it does attract an engagement from outside communities. So individuals, from wherever you are, thanks for joining us. My name is Teressa Ruspi, Executive Director of the LRJ Foundation, co-founder, along with my twin sister, Carla. And our mission here at LRJ is to provide, evidence-based, user-friendly mental health, wellness, and suicide prevention education to schools in the community, workplace, alongside with parents and teachers. We begin our journey, of optimism of mental health struggles, simply, ways in how to balance normal life stressors back in 2012, after personally losing my brother to suicide. So this endeavor is very important to me, my family, and my community. My daily motivation along with this team is to share education that instills hope to make your day better than it was yesterday. We appreciate your time being here this evening, and I'm just going to start with a short disclaimer. The content shared and heard on this webinar and featured on LRJ Foundation and the City of Milton's website, to include social media, is not meant to be taken for professional advice, medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Furthermore, it is not meant to substitute any of this advice, diagnosis, or treatment given by a counselor, doctor, psychologist, or the content on this site is to be used for supportive tools only. Please utilize this information responsibly. If you are in a crisis or you feel you may have an emergency, please call your doctor or 911 immediately. If any of this material this evening is heard that may bring on some unexpected emotion, please know that the new national hotline 988 is available for you, and a licensed skills counselor is there to answer and support any of your questions. With that, I'm excited to get onto this mental wellness webinar. And with that, we have our first panelist I'm going to introduce. And it's actually two people I need to introduce. Firefighter Jamie Leavell and her support service dog, Katey. Jamie has nearly 20 years of service in fire. She's left an impressive mark on our community where she has served. Jamie is a certified fire instructor, fire inspector, emergency medical technician, arson investigator, life safety educator, peer support, crisis intervention expert, just to name a few of her accomplishments. Jamie, welcome to the Milton's Wellness webinar. We're excited for your valuable information that you're going to share this evening.
Hi, thank you.
Absolutely. We would just love to hear a little bit about your initiatives working with a therapy dog. What's that like? How has it helped the community? And what are some plans for you and Katey?
So I got Katey about 2.5 years ago during the height of COVID. I was in an admin position, training position with my fire department. So I was sent to work from home, and I got her with every intentions of visiting hospitals and nursing homes as a therapy animal. And of course, COVID put the brakes on that pretty quick. So I had to come up with another way. And it just made sense to me if I want to help people, I need to help the people closest to me. And that's my brothers and sisters in public safety. And so I decided to try and bring this initiative to my department, and they were open to it. So I trained her. I did just basic obedience training, got her registered as a therapy animal, and started bringing her to work with me. It's kind of a lot of work sometimes. She's very neat. See her pawing at me. But she really does make a difference in the station, around the station, and anywhere we visit. We go to 911 centers, we go to the police department. I actually am stationed right now at the station 44 in Milton, and that's where the police station is. So I recently took her over for like a little meet and greet with PD. And ever since then, every time she sees a cop car, she thinks she can just bolt across the parking lot and get a police officer in that car. So we have to set some ground rules with don't call her from across the parking lot. But it really does make a difference. I personally started researching it and getting into the peer support because I had a couple of coworkers. I lost a couple of friends to suicide that were firefighters and EMTs, and I thought there's got to be a better way. So the fire service, police departments, whoever needed it, and she seems to make a difference. And we're only one dog and one human, so we can't really go everywhere. So my mission now is to get other agencies on board to get their own dogs and handlers. So that's where we are now.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And so, where does Katey stay? After her day and her shift, what's her today's schedule like?
So when she's not at the station, she's just a regular pet. I have other dogs at home, and she gets to go home and just be a dog, and she doesn't quite as obedient as she does when we're at work. But she seems to know the difference. So when we're at home, she's not as nearly as well behaved. Sit, stay, wait. She's not nearly as well behaved as she is here. She does lose patience with me when I'm doing videos for some reason, and she always ends up doing this, but wait. So, but yeah, she just is a regular dog. And, on our off days, sometimes we do go visit other agencies and promote the mission of getting a dog. And I've had probably the Cherokee County 911, they have a dog now because I'm very close friends with the director up there. And she met Katey at a conference, and she said, if I had never met Katey, I would have never even entertained the idea of letting them have a dog in the 911 center. But now they have a dog, and she was a rescue from the shelter, which is across the street. So I'm winning on both ends, rescuing dogs and helping people.
I love that. I love those both aspects. I mean, you think about it, you have individuals who need some support and have service dogs. I was today just out in town, and how many service dogs I've seen with individuals to support them in their needs. So having on staff bringing, stress relief, bringing joy and excitement to your departments and your community is an amazing thing, and it makes a lot of sense. I love that you're spreading this message, rescuing dogs at the same time that can be used for great sources for the community, let alone giving back love that they deserve as well as a pet. So that is, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Katey. Excuse me, Jamie. Thanks for bringing Katey along with you. Anything else you want to add in?
Just that, with the fire service specifically and public safety in general, the stigma is where we run into the big issue. And with the dog, it doesn't seem like you're getting therapy. It's just something that makes you feel a little bit better. She pets, she gives kisses, and it doesn't feel like it kind of helps break that stigma, right? So she's not a therapist. You don't have to tell her all your problems, although she probably is a good listener. But it kind of helps break that barrier between I need help and I just want to pet the dog because it makes me feel good. So I feel like in the right settings, it can bridge that gap and kind of breaks the ice for people that want to reach out but don't.
I love that. It bridges the gap. I think that's important. As many of our mental health professionals, and Vanessa, will allude to this in Chantel and their work, there's many ways to cope, and whatever attracts someone to that way to cope or to destigmatize and whatever works for somebody. And if it's, the companion of a pet, that's one way to go. We need to add that to our list, Vanessa. I love that. But Jamie, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I learn something new every day. I absolutely love that new coping mechanism right there. But on to our next panelist. I have the pleasure of every year introducing Chief Austin of the Milton Police Department. Chief Austin is an incredible officer with over 25 years of experience in law enforcement, serving a variety of patrols, administrative and leadership positions. His commitment to building community partnerships and empowering his staff is evident in his daily work and his presence tonight. So Chief Austin, thank you so much for your support. We would love to hear a little bit about your involvement and support to your staff within mental health and wellness, some strategies, and those that do manage some of these challenges.
And thank you very much, Teressa. You mentioned partnerships, and I think that's a key word and certainly what we're displaying here this evening. It takes these key community partnerships to push these initiatives along and to educate our community. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak just for a few minutes this evening about how law enforcement sort of fits into that. As you know, police officers, oftentimes we see people at their worst, including those sometimes suffering from mental and psychological distress. And this sort of gives us a special perspective on the importance and understanding and raising awareness about mental health issues. It's important for law enforcement officers too. We often find ourselves in traumatic, stressful, difficult situations. I remember being a young officer, seeing some very traumatic incidents and never offered any type of follow-up or decompression or anything like that. It was just go to work the next day and keep moving. And over a career that can really build up, especially things of that nature. So we think it's very important for us to be there for our officers, to be there for our community. Internally, some of the things that we've been doing, I think are pretty innovative, is we offer our officers a counseling program through our Milton First Responders program, because we know that officers are going to serve our community better if they're themselves fit for duty. They're ready to get out there and serve. They have had an opportunity to work through any issues that they might be having, reducing their stress. So that helps us to help others. So we really appreciate our Milton First Responders Foundation for offering that in addition to our city offerings. But externally, we have also, over the past several years, invested a lot in training our officers in how to work with folks that they find that are in mental distress. That has become very important. I remember having very little training in this area back in the 90s, and so much more training and education has come about in this area. So we've trained our officers, again, specifically how to deal with these situations in a manner that provides dignity and respect for those that we're dealing with, and also helps to connect them to appropriate services. One area where we've made some strides in this recently is I have the pleasure of serving on the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police Legislative Committee. And I'm not sure how many people realize this, but for an officer to take someone in for an evaluation, let's say they want to, they tell us they want to hurt themselves, we would have to actually have a penal offense, a crime committed for us to be able to take them somewhere to get them help. And fortunately, through the work of the GACP Legislative Committee and speaking with our lawmakers, they agreed that this wasn't the best approach. And now they've allowed us the opportunity to take folks for an evaluation through contacting a physician that's on call. So we have that 24/7 now for us. We are also trying to do some more proactive work as far as co-response. We're looking into co-response models now as well to help us in this area. So we hope to have something positive to report on that in the coming months as well. But it's for all these reasons that we're very grateful to join with the LRJ Foundation in promoting mental wellness through this webinar and by sharing tips and resources. So we think it's very, very helpful. And again, it goes back to partnerships, and we really appreciate the partnership that we have in our community to help in this very important topic. So thank you.
Excellent. Jameson, thank you. It's amazing to hear everything that you all are doing internally and externally. It's one, like you said, things are a lot different than when you started. So, and you know, the world is a lot different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So being innovative and adding these new mechanisms to your trainings, through your daily lives, I'm sure it helps personally, helps bring back to your family and friends. So I think it's amazing. Keep up the great work. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, well, we are moving. Again, just want to make mention, if anyone does have any questions throughout the webinar, please put them in the chat and we'll go ahead and answer them towards the end. But I'd like to move on next to our next presenter, Chantal Webb. She's been a part of the LRJ Foundation for a little bit over a year right now. She is an educator. She's a mental health wellness advocate and educator whose organization is called In It Together. And it promotes culture of respecting emotions, acceptance, love, and inclusion. She primarily works with children with special needs and mental illness. And we're very excited for her to share some tips with us this evening. Chantal?
Thank you so much, Teressa. I'm really happy to be a part of this webinar, and I think the message is really important. I think we need to have more partnerships like this, and we need to talk about things openly so that we can move away from stigma and people know that there is support out there for them. And so I'm going to get started with my presentation. And today I am going to be talking about how parents can support their child and or teens with success, and specifically talking about stress management and what that means and how we can support them through stressful moments. So how does stress affect school success? So stress is a part of our everyday lives. We know that. And sometimes stress can actually be good in a sense that it helps motivate us. It, gets us going. But too much stress can actually become really overwhelming and can cause problems with health, brain function, sleep, our ability to just sort of move through our day-to-day lives. And so this is why it's really important to be mindful of the amount of stress children and youth, as well as yourselves, are experiencing. And some things that we want to think about, why is it so important? We should always be communicating. Communication is such a key part about when dealing with many things, but today we're talking specifically about stress. So really communicating with your child and or teen to help them deal with school stress. What is it that we, and why is this important? Because, about 4.4 million children between the ages of 13 to 17 are diagnosed with anxiety. And these are the children who have been diagnosed. So, these are not just the actual numbers, these are the people who have been diagnosed. So the number, as we know, is probably much, much higher than this. And what do we do with all of this? One of the important things we want to do is we want to teach them coping mechanisms. So the message isn't that we're not going to have stress in our lives, because we do, but how do we cope with it? What can we do so that we can deal with it in a productive way so that it doesn't have such negative impacts on our day-to-day lives? And we do that through teaching coping skills like yoga and meditation. And we're going to talk about some other coping skills later on in the presentation. And so what are some signs? How do you know that maybe your child or teen is maybe feeling really stressed? And so you know your child and or teen best. So if you are paying attention, you may see some signs like change in personality, you know, and of course there are the ups and downs of day to day, right? Because we're going through many changes. But like ongoing or really drastic changes, take notes of that. When are those types of things happening? So it's not just what's happening, but when is it happening? And maybe struggle concentrating, like they just can't concentrate. If there's somebody who typically, you know, is able to concentrate, get things done, but all of a sudden you see this drastic change where they just can't focus, maybe this is a sign that they're feeling quite stressed. And then other things like mood swings, irritability, even things like changes in eating patterns or sleeping patterns, eating too much, not eating enough, or sleeping too much, not sleeping enough. So these things, and it's really paying attention and, you know, noting it. So maybe today they're just not eating because they're just not, you know, just not really hungry, and that's okay. That doesn't mean all of a sudden they're super stressed. But if it's an ongoing thing, really paying attention to that. But it's also about teaching them to recognize these signs within themselves. So you as parents, of course, need to, but how do we teach them to recognize when they feel stressed? And what is it that they can do during those moments? And we do that through identifying different emotions and feelings. So for example, sometimes stress leads to the emotion of being overwhelmed. And we start by talking about what does it mean to be overwhelmed? What does that actually mean? Because that is different than stress. And so in this case, for example, overwhelmed is when we feel completely overcome by the pressure of so many things to do. And so that's what it is. That's what being overwhelmed is. And then talking to them, what might cause you to feel overwhelmed? Okay, so you're feeling overwhelmed. When have you felt overwhelmed? What situations were those? So maybe when you have too much homework, you have an upcoming exam, maybe your teacher has been away and there is an inconsistency in the routine and every day you have a different teacher, the pressure of getting good grades or balancing school with all the extracurriculars. So ask them, in which moments do you feel like you are overwhelmed? And then also to ask them, like, when you think about that, what were you feeling? Were you feeling things like a really fast heartbeat? Was your stomach upset? Did you feel like a little bit nauseous? Like, what was happening? So that they could also recognize the physical signs of what it is that's happening when they're feeling overwhelmed. And we all know that maybe overwhelmed is the most prominent feeling that we're experiencing, but there are also other things that are going on. So ask them, what else happens to you? Are you feeling worried? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel overloaded? Do you feel distracted? So that they can identify that. And what they then do with all of that is they can recognize the signs within themselves, and then they can utilize the coping skills that they have to bring themselves back to a more calm place where they're not so stressed, where stress doesn't dictate their lives. So it's about also creating ownership for them and understanding what it is that they're experiencing. And so how do you help them manage their stress? And so one of the key things that you need to do is really to communicate and acknowledge their concerns. And it's really, really important to help them deal with school stress. And part of what you can do is to simply let them know that you're there for them. You're there to listen and not necessarily tell them what they have to do, but work with them to come up with ideas and solutions on how they can move forward. But just sometimes just knowing that someone is there to support you can help alleviate some of that stress that they're feeling. And we want to try not to, you know, I think sometimes we the initial response is like, just tell them what to do to solve the problem. But sometimes we want to start with validating their feelings, especially in the moments where we feel like it's an overreaction or it's something really doesn't stress you out. And so the feeling that I am having right now is completely valid. And I think that's one of the things that you can do to create a strong relationship with your child. Validate their feelings, even when you don't fully understand them. But if you communicate more with them, you will have a better understanding of where they're coming from. And we really want to be positive and encourage healthy living. So if they're feeling really nervous about school, the changes, all the upcoming things that are happening, maybe you're feeling a little bit nervous for them too. We really want to show enthusiasm so that they can turn that nervousness into excitement, and really encouraging healthy habits, like encouraging them to eat well, have a balanced diet, sleep well, limit screen usage, and also important for you to model those things as well, so that they can see that you're actually doing the things that you're encouraging them to do. And then, sorry. Okay. And we want to support their learning style, okay? And to recognize that everybody learns differently, and what might work for one child definitely isn't going to work for another child. Or maybe what worked for them last year isn't working for them this year because the expectations are completely different. They have changed, all of those things. So sit down with them and discuss, like, what is your learning style? What can we do? How can I support you to make sure that, you know, you have the best school and or homework outcomes? What do you want those to be? And to have a discussion versus like you telling them what to do. And I think one of the other important things is sometimes we get so overwhelmed by school stress, work stress, that we forget about the importance of providing non-school related activities. Regardless of our age, everyone needs playtime, downtime, and family time every single day. This is a way that we can just feel good overall, like our overall well-being, if we take that time. And so we really want to allow and encourage time for them to rejuvenate, and so that it doesn't always feel like being bogged down by responsibilities that come with being in school. And so they also, encourage them to do things like listen to music, reading for pleasure, spending time with their friends, the things that they actually enjoy, because we need time to reflect, to dream, to explore the world, to figure out who we are, and they really need that time. And sometimes when it's all about grades, and I'm not saying grades aren't important because they are, but other quality things are also important. So to find the balance. And then we don't want to overburden them. And we want to establish a routine for fun. So we don't want to overburden them. We really want to establish routine time for fun and hobbies. And so it's also about getting to know what they want to do. So not just the hobbies that we want them to do. What are the hobbies that you enjoy doing? And when they do that, when they're enjoying things, what comes out of that is they learn ways to cope with stress on their own, because they're motivated to do it, to be there, because it's something that they enjoy. And then the last thing that we want to do is to teach them coping skills. And so simple things like exercise, yoga, meditation can really reduce mental health challenges. And so you want to teach them things like breathing, yoga, and different coping skills, so that when they are feeling overwhelmed, they have a toolbox. They have things that they have quick reference to. You can also remind them of these things. And so this allows them to be present in the moment and feel safe within themselves, because they have some tools, because maybe you're not always going to be there. Sometimes they're going to be alone. What can they do during these times that they are feeling really stressed out or overwhelmed? And so some key takeaways from today is to really support them, teaching them skills such as planning their time better. How can we manage our time versus manage your time? We really want to try to teach them the skills to manage their time. Sorry, Teressa, can you go back to the, yeah, thanks. And like I said earlier, really creating open and honest communication. This will help you not just with this, but just also feel a stronger connection to them if you feel like you can communicate with them honestly, especially in the challenging times. And you want to be a positive role model. So all these things that we're asking them to do, we also should be doing them. And so, you know, engaging in self-care, having a healthy balance, using coping skills for when we are stressed so that they can also see us doing these things. Encourage downtime and foster a healthy definition of what success means. And so making sure that they know they are loved and you are proud of them for who they are, not only for how well they perform. And it's okay to have expectations, but this doesn't define your love for them or how proud you are of them, especially if they've absolutely tried their best. And this is a really important message because I know that the pressure of doing well in everyday lives, even for us as adults, can add a lot of stress. Because we feel like there's so many expectations. And so let's really encourage the message that you're loved and we are proud of you for who you are and not just the things that you perform. And really, we want to support them in developing and using coping skills to manage their stress. And some of those things are, so for example, they can exercise. Sometimes just moving is something that can help you. Sometimes you just need some love and a really big hug. Like the power of a hug can just sometimes make you feel so much better, as well as sometimes a really good cry. Sometimes you just need to release that and you'll feel much better. Being in nature, laughter, you know, we all know that laughter can just heal the soul. It can just make us feel so much better. So like providing those opportunities and also just reminding them that sometimes one of the best things that we can do in moments where we're feeling like whatever is to step away from that situation and do something that's not causing the stress. And then these are some additional coping skills like being kind to yourself, doing some deep breathing, maybe playing a sport, writing a journal, making a list of the things that you can control so that we focus on those things versus all the other things that are going on around us. And same thing, we want to really encourage the practice of mindfulness. And so what does that look like? You know, focusing on the things around us, the things we hear, the smell and touch. Music is a great way to, you know, help us feel focused and connected and calm us down. And really to practice gratitude. You know, what are the things that we are grateful for? And to remind us that life is not just about, you know, school grades and all of those things. And really breathing, I think, is a really beneficial tool for all of us, you know, because we all feel anxious, we all feel stressed, and breathing can really, really calm you down and bring you back to a center where you can think more logically. And sometimes it can be as simple as that. That's all I have. So thank you very much. Sorry for my little need for a break. And I'm super honored and excited to introduce your next presenter, mental health professional, Vanessa.
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you in the city of Milton tonight. I want to thank Mayor Jameson and the whole city for having mental health and mental wellness be, you know, primary in that city for your community and your citizens. I'm actually thinking about a way to get a meeting with the mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to try to get the same thing rolling here, because this is really inspiring me tonight to really want to keep it going. So I have been with LRJ Foundation for, I think it's 9 years now, almost since the very beginning. I don't know Louis, for which this foundation was created, but I feel like I do from all these years and the work that we've done. And to do the work in the community in which I live is a real honor, but to also be able to offer it in Georgia, where Teressa is based out of, and to also be where her family roots are is really special. It's been some of the most rewarding work I've ever done in my community with the schools. And as Chantel was speaking, I just, every topic is applies not only to our kids and our students, but also ourselves. You all know the adage of, if you're in a crisis on an airplane, you put your own oxygen mask on before you try to help the person sitting next to you. And it really is true. I tell the adult audiences we have frequently, whether they're teachers or administrators or community members, it's really important that we take care of ourselves so we have that energy and ability to support those around us. So let's get started. We're going to talk about work and life harmony, how to keep it in balance. So the pandemic, for most of us, especially those of us in the working world, it really disrupted the flow of what we do and how we do it. I worked a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday office job in addition to what I do with LRJ. And anymore. I wasn't with my coworkers. I was in the same space every day that I also live in. And it created a lot of needs around how do I recreate how to do self-care and to get my work done. I have coworkers that also had kids they had to educate at home. In addition to working from home, it created a lot of different balls in the air to juggle. So we really became more aware of how important mental health is. When we talk to our students, we make it clear that mental health is something that everyone has, just like physical health. It isn't special to someone who has a quote unquote mental health diagnosis. We all have mental health, and there's degrees to which it feels more effective than others at different times of life. And that's all normal and, happens to all of us. But it's also important to remember that we're not just one entity. So even though we may have occupational goals, and that's a part of our self-awareness and our satisfaction, it isn't all that we are. We bring our whole selves to the workplace. So I love this slide because it reminds us right now at my full-time job is Wellness Week, and we focus on several dimensions of wellness as well. It's not just our physical wellness, but it's also our spiritual, social, emotional, occupational, intellectual wellness. All those parts are important. Even if they're not all in balance at once, it's important to try to see where we're not meeting the need and to try to do a little bit better with that so we feel more in balance. Next slide. So I'm going to give you just a few ideas of how you cope. So people did what they had to do to kind of cope with the reality of life over the last couple of years in particular. And yet, as Chantel also emphasized, is that stress always exists. If you watch the news, which I do my best not to watch the news with any regularity because there is so much disruption in the world, and it can really feel like it impacts my inner sense of calm and stillness. So there's things we can put into place, but they seem to be in some pretty generalized categories. So again, these are all things we advise all of our students, whether they're 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, or they're high school students, college students, is what it comes down to. And again, this is all going to sound familiar from what Chantel said, because it's all the same for all of us, is that the first thing is that we're learning how to manage our emotions. And what does managing our emotions mean? It means we identify them, we validate them, and we express them. So even if it's something as intense as anger in and of itself as an emotion is not a bad thing. It's just that we need to learn how to identify it and express it in a healthy way so that we're not breaking items that are important to us when we're angry, but that we're able to express it in healthy ways of venting emotions. And we'll talk about what some of those coping skills are to help with that. So that's the first suggestion, is that we learn how to manage our emotions more effectively, which means saying they're all okay, no matter what they are. Our next one, again, communication. very, very clearly one of the most important aspects of being able to manage ourselves and cope in difficult situations, but also to maintain our relationships with those around us. So communication is not a one-way street. It isn't just about the way we express ourselves to others, but it's also about the way we receive information from others. So we have to have a sense of empathy, meaning we can understand or put ourselves in another person's shoes. It means that we're willing to actively listen, to be open and available if someone is having difficulty and needs to talk. Believe it or not, nonverbal communication, and in some cultures, it's highly suggestive of how open or not a person is. But nonverbal communication is really important to keep in mind when you're trying to be present with another person and really actively communicate with them. If you're standing like this, it gives a whole different signal than if you have an openness to you. So really being aware of your nonverbal cues and those of another person. And also validating. So Chantel talked about this too, is that even if it's a problem that we don't see as a problem, validating it for another person as their authentic experience because they're experiencing difficulty with it, that's definitely very important to be able to effectively communicate with another person. So relationships, we all have them. We have different relationships in different capacities in our lives, whether they're our work relationships, family relationships, community relationships, relationships with our children. They can benefit us in really brilliant ways if we use skills that help us to enhance those relationships as best we can. So when relationships are positive, which means we're managing our emotions effectively, we're communicating clearly, they actually are proven to decrease depression and anxiety. They reduce those feelings of stress and overwhelm that Chantel was talking about because we know we are being heard and COVID was and the pandemic and the shutdown and the responses within our world were really heavily impacting all of us because our feeling of belongingness often gets connected with us seeing each other in person. And that was taken away for a very long time, even for those people closest to us. So when our relationships are really moving in a positive direction, they help us to remember that we belong, that we feel connected to something. It doesn't matter even if there becomes conflict in those relationships, but it's that sense of belonging that's really important. And relationships can also boost our feeling of having a sense of purpose in the world and in our lives. We always emphasize with our students especially is the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationships and how to know the difference so that you can build those healthy relationships to be your supports. So boundaries was a huge one for me in my new work era as well, as far as working remotely, because I had my office next door to where I sleep every night. So it could be really tempting to check my work email on a Saturday or to stay online until 6 p.m. until dinner was ready. I really had to put them in place. But beyond the pandemic, beyond a work from home environment, boundaries are key. They sustain our relationships in positive ways, but they also keep us on track for our own wellness. And it's not selfish to have boundaries. It's actually self-loving, and it's actually more respectful to those around us because we are being authentic about what our limits are, and we're able to speak up when maybe we're being asked to go beyond our limits. It's absolutely okay to have them. It shows a sign of self-respect. It shows signs of self-care, self-love. So boundaries, having them and using them, that's the most important part. Our coping skills list probably doesn't look much different than Chantel's list for the kiddos and suggestions for parents to keep in mind, because it really is a very personalized set of tools to have in your tool belt, to have in your toolbox, to use not just when you feel stressed and overwhelmed. That's very important, but also to have them in place to use preventively. I like to describe it to people as, instead of putting out the fires that occur when we feel like we're in emotional crisis, wouldn't it be great to prevent those fires if we could? And to be able to do that, we have to have practices in place that feel self-loving, self-caring, and that we use on a consistent basis, make a good habit. So I have coping skills that I use regularly. I enjoy journaling and writing and reading and spending quiet time in the morning, spending time in nature, taking long walks. Those are all really strong coping skills for me. Listening to music, dancing in the kitchen while I cook dinner. Those are really great ones for me. But someone else's might be drawing, painting, jumping on the trampoline. Like, it's endless what we can use to keep that self-care in mind. So if you know what your coping skills are, your main go-tos, keep them close by so that have the supplies on hand, and you don't have to go seeking them, when you really need them, but they have them readily available to you. So Chantel also mentioned this, and it's very key for me, being in the moment, being as mindful as you can. And sometimes mindful can sound like a contradiction because it feels like we're in our mind when actually we're doing our best to be more still than in our thoughts. But the message of it really is to get present. We cannot yet know what the future is going to bring. Reflecting on the past, excessively does nothing but to maybe raise resentment or have us live in past circumstances. So really all we ever have is the present moment. And our breath is one of the most key ways to drop back into that present moment. I did a wellness workshop this week with my coworkers, and I advised them every hour at the top of the hour, take 3 to 5 deep breaths in and out, sitting at your desk. It's available, it's easy. And because our body involuntarily breathes on its own 24/7, when we become present to breathing, just a few active present breaths, it really can make a difference to our body and our mind. So keep that in mind. It really just takes practice, but it's really worth the effort. It really is. And wow, we're on schedule, Teressa. I'm so impressed. We both did really great with the time, but I again just want to thank the City of Milton so much for your availability, for your willingness, for showing up and remembering that mental health and wellness matters, and that we're all in this together, and it really is a group effort. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Vanessa, for that. I took down so many great notes, and I hope you all did as well. And we do want to open this up to any comments, questions at this time. Feel free to pop in the chat, or if you're able to unmute your mic at this time, would like to ask anything, the floor is yours. Or even to share anything insightful too. That's always something great. Denise, thank you for your comment. Enjoy the webinar, very helpful. I'm so glad. Thank you for being here. I think it's very helpful as far as the work-life harmony. I love that because there's some really great things where balance sometimes is not available because we just can't really balance everything. But how do we have the harmony to mesh everything together, which I think is so important. And Vanessa, I think that's great advice. And I'm going to start doing this as well as the top of the hour. I mean, we're watching the clock. We're seeing when our next meeting is, right? We're looking to see where we have to be, where we have to go. We know when the top of the hour is. So let's use that opportunity to take those deep breaths and really center ourselves, bring us back to the present moment, figure out what matters, what doesn't, and what do we have coming next, just kind of reevaluate. And I love that, to do that in the every hour. So thank you. I'm taking that into my tomorrow.
All right. And
yes.
One other thing about the work-life balance that was really interesting is, I work for a huge organization. We have almost 700 employees, and we're all across the state of Pennsylvania. And what I realized when we all went through this experience together, even though each person was experiencing it in a different way, we the belief that we're one person at work and we're a different person outside of work kind of dissipated, because all of our needs seem to be constant all day, every day, because everything got kind of mashed together. And our organization was kind enough to allow us to start to support one another through that. And just that validation, just that listening, just that giving of resources and letting people know they're not alone. It removed, I know we talked a lot tonight about stigma. The chief talked about that too. And stigma is very important to recognize as still existing in our society. And how do we acknowledge that mental health is real? It is within all of us as human beings. And how do we support one another to maximize that mental health as much as we can?
Yep, I love that. That's great. Like you said in the beginning, you know, mental health is something everyone has, no matter where they're at, where they're working, their home life. So it's, yeah, that's really great. But I have some really great takeaways, and what we are going to do is we're going to post this webinar on the City of Milton's website. It'll be also featured on LRJ Foundation's website. We do have the slides available if anyone's interested. We can put those in a PDF, and they'll also be attached on the website as well, so you can revert back. There's lots and lots of coping skills on there, different takeaways, especially to support your student, your children, if you're a teacher, your students in the classroom, your family, your co-workers, and yourselves. So on behalf of the LRJ Foundation, if there's no other questions at this time or comments, I want to thank you again to all those panelists that attended this evening, for the City of Milton, and for all those watching. Thank you all and have a great evening.